Yo, what is up, everyone? Welcome to another Tales of Web3 episode. Today we are recording season 3, episode 18, with the legend Tien from Pendle. How's it going, brother?
I'm well. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So as I said, I've done my homework. I've watched all these different kind of interviewed podcasts that you've hopped on before. And I think a lot of people, especially people who are interested in Pendle, already knows about the stories, right? The stories of how you guys started this like trading future yield marketplace, right? Back in the DeFi summertime, right? Where people are getting thousands of percentage of the APYs, where you guys think it's just good if you can lock in around 10%, 20% yield, right? So, and then that's how the first product started. And then you obviously iterated, pivoted multiple times until we have the Pendle now, the V3. And so we won't talk about like the stories and stuff where you already shared enough times. The first question for you is, as a non-technical co-founder, a founder, right? Like, what is the most challenging part for you personally, especially in early stages of Pendle?
So, as a non-technical co-founder, I don't read codes. I have an idea of how things should look like. So the challenge has always been to filter out, in a extremely technical space like the one that we're currently operating.
Yes.
Filtering out high quality developer and not very high quality developer is very, very important. So that has never been my strength, but I lean into. So for me, I've had a fair share of mistakes of hiring people. This was probably in the earlier days of Pendle, but when it comes to hiring engineers, as a non-technical co-founder, I lean into something that is a bit more tried and tested. So basically, I looked up the Olympiad portals and then really reach out to all these different guys, because if they're
That's how you got the medal winners on your team, right?
yeah, and I think it really helped because prior to starting Pendle, actually I have another business. It wasn't as technical, but you could see that there's a very clear difference between someone of a certain quality and someone who is relatively mediocre. And you always want to pay more money to get the better quality person to join your team. So for me, it was more or less the same kind of strategy. Like I'm not very technical, but I want to make sure that whoever joins our team is very, very competent in the aspect that I'm not very good at. But I also have other co-founders who are very technical. So one of my co-founders, he's a CTO, he's also a math Olympiad. So he would be a better person to identify who's good and who's not. But I had to do the first layer of filtering because I couldn't be wasting his time to
I see.
look out for candidates. So I want to make sure that the candidates that I present to him for the final interview is of a certain quality. So I had to be resourceful and look out for good talents. And the way I did it was to go through the ICPC and Olympiad portals and really reach out all of them. And hopefully they returned my cold message. And it worked.
That's actually pretty sick. Because I know like because a lot of people are saying Pendle team has one of the highest concentration of talent in this entire industry, not only DeFi, but entire industry. And like I do think there's a lot of like really smart founders out there. And obviously they raise like $100 million. And they are supposed to get like the world top tier talent too. So, but I don't think they've tried your approach, to be honest. So I think that.
We were scarce on resources, so we had to be resourceful. And I think looking back, that was actually one of the better things to happen, right? Because we didn't have a lot of money. We couldn't just go to one of these top engineers at Facebook and Google and offer them
Yes.
better packages than they already are getting. So we had to be creative.
Awesome. Now that you have already built a world-class team, all these top-tier talent, what is the most challenging part of your day-to-day work right now?
Yeah, so things have evolved quite a fair bit because this is our 5th year in operation, and we've also scaled up from just 4 or 5 people to a bit more than 40 right now. But that's also because
Nice.
we are operating Pendle V2, and then we'll also be launching Boros, so we need two sets of operations, and each of them will have different headcounts. The bigger challenge for me this year is really to manage 2 different teams because this is the first time for me. And on the one hand, we have a product that is relatively mature in Pendle V2. So people know Pendle V2 as the product for points trading. If they want to get
Yes,
fixed rate,
exactly.
if they want to speculate on points, that's that product. But I'm also worried that this segment that we're operating in is growing. So our view is that points is not going away. Contrast to a lot of people's belief, points we think will stay on and it will sustain because it has become such an important part of the go-to-market strategy for projects.
Every single
Usually what
project.
happens right now is they will launch a points campaign, try to aggregate more liquidity, and then they will do the TGE. So this is going to sustain. So Pendle V2 will continue to focus on this particular use case. And we want to make sure Pendle V2 remains to be the most competitive venue for any of these campaigns to launch on. So this year, that strategy for Pendle V2 is firstly, how we can continue to grow the metrics despite the current market sentiment and condition. And then secondly, how do we grow our moat? Because we have to assume that if the segment is going to grow, then we will not be the only player in the space. And with the technical lead that we have at the moment, we have to do our very best to ensure that we remain the premier venue for anything to do with points and yield trading. Then, on the other hand, we also have a new incoming product called Boros, which is it's an instrument for the trading of funding rates. Now, this product has a very different kind of methodology, and it also is a 0 to 1 product. So this product has to find a product market fit. So for me and my co-founders and the management team, we have to juggle between these 2 products. One is how do we sustain growth and build up our moat. Secondly, we have to find product market fit for the new Boros. And I think it actually takes up a lot of mind space, but I enjoy it because I think this is a very good position to be in. Because when we were much smaller, we didn't have to think about all these things. We just have to focus on survival. But now at this current stage, we have more things to worry about. And I would pick this over a smaller scale, less problem stage any day.
That's awesome. I remember in one of your previous episodes, you shared about, the way of finding product market fit, right? It's definitely not there on day one. And usually it grows out of from all these different kind of attempt at testing out the market, your users, audience. So I really love that part. Just wanted to state that out.
Thank you.
Yeah. So like right now, Pendle, I'd say is like the strongest stage ever, right? All these 5 years. But still, I do think there are some really, really dark moments that you guys have to go through, right? And then you also shared that like not everyone is cut out to be an entrepreneur. So why do you think you are an entrepreneur, and how do you convince yourself to survive the darkest moment of Pendle and
Yeah.
just keep building, keep leading the team?
So I want to say that I think everyone has a fair shot in becoming an entrepreneur because today, starting something, the cost has become so negligible. Like if you want to start a DeFi product, you can effectively fork something, maybe add a few
100%.
lines of code to differentiate, and then you're running your own protocol. The cost of starting something has become lower because of technology. But to but running an operation has always been very challenging, because no matter what stage you're at, whether you're small, when you're fighting for survival, and when you're big, you're trying to remain relevant and stop any kind of stop potential disruption and grow with changing environment. That becomes a very serious issue when you're at a larger scale. So there will always be different challenges. Now, the thing is, are you able to embrace that and live through different challenges? So I don't think, like, even though everyone has a fair shot of becoming an entrepreneur, I think having to change your mental model in accordance to different stages that you're at requires a different kind of resilience. And I'm not sure if everyone is cut out for that. Perhaps it can be trained, but it definitely requires a certain kind of personality that enjoys problem solving, and depending on different situations, adapt and continue to survive. And with respect to your question about the darkest moment, I think there have been, I wouldn't say like there's a specific darkest moment, because if I'm being honest with you, when I look back, I wonder sometimes how we survived certain stages. But when I also think about it at a deeper level, as we were executing, I didn't think it was that difficult. So as an example, right? In 2022, when the industry started imploding, starting with Terra Luna, and then Three Arrows, Celsius, and then eventually like FTX. Quite a lot of events happened then.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people in the segment really wondered the relevance of the industry, because you started to see big companies blowing up and then a lot of job losses. And then I think it's not uncommon for people who are still working on DeFi protocols or centralized exchanges or anything to do with crypto to think about their job security. And I'm sure people who are part of Pendle at the point in time would also consider that as well. So for me, it was really just assuring that like we have enough runway to sustain ourselves, because we've always been very, very lean, and we exercise strong financial discipline to make sure we optimize for survival.
Nice. Nice.
And that like we have a vision much bigger than what people think we are capable of. So that was coming from our side, right? But as I'm going through that process, it didn't feel too difficult, because our team weren't that big. Maybe because the people who we onboarded were already very aligned in terms of direction. So a little bit of reassuring, and then we kept going. So we continued shipping. So 2022 was actually a very critical period for us, because that was the year where we had very, very little traction, largely because we were sunsetting V1 and we were constructing V2. So we didn't see any kind of traction at that point in time. But again, looking back, when I'm sitting right here, I thought maybe that was a pretty difficult period. But when I was there at that very particular moment, I was focusing on the next stage, and I didn't think too far ahead. So it didn't feel that difficult.
That's nice, because I feel like if you are really dedicated, like you're 100%, 120% of your energy on building, right? You forget about like if I'm in a bear or a bull now. You only care about like if there's growth, if there's real users and stuff like that, which is amazing.
Yeah. So I also started to realize this when I was doing multi-day hikes. When you're standing at the bottom of the peak and you look up, like that's where you gotta go. It looks very daunting. It always does. And I get that feeling every single time I do multi-day hikes. But you just have to take one step at a time. You don't have to look too far ahead. You just have to look at your next step, and you keep walking, and a couple of days later, you'll be at the summit. That usually is how it happens. So again, to be honest, I think it's no different from operating Pendle in a difficult period. It's just fighting an uphill battle, but you do it one step at a time.
Beautiful. One step at a time. And be patient. That's also the key.
Yeah.
So, and after 2022, you guys made some great bet, right? You guys go all in on the LSD, which give you guys a huge amount of traction, and the LRTs, which is another huge boost. Tell us a little bit more about like, how did you guys identify the opportunity first? And the second, like, what is the reason or the courage that leads you guys to go all in, right? Because like usually when you go all in, it's like a huge risk too, right? Right now it proves that you guys made the right bet. But like at that specific moment when you decided to go all in, both LSD and LRT, what is the decision process goes like?
Yeah, so I think this we did go all in on LSD. This was in late 2022, early 23.
Yes.
When Lido was starting to like pick up in serious traction. Usually the way we decide on the trends and narratives to focus on based on the qualitative and quantitative observation. So we spend for me, I spend a good amount of time actually speaking with funds and very smart individuals just to get a sense of what they're focusing on. And then we also operate Discord servers for like public conversations. And if more people talk about a certain thing, like chances are they are interested in that. So when you put that two aspects together and you see that 9 out of 10 times people are talking about a certain subject, whether it's meme coin or AI or LSD, LRTs, then that's probably something people want. So it wasn't so difficult for us to focus on that. But I also want to say, when we were at the turn of like Pendle V2 at the very beginning, I made it a point to focus on staying on top of trend and experimentations. So basically that means like staying on top of trend, like we have to be relevant, so that because in crypto, staying relevant is one of the most important things
100%,
a team can do. So we have to figure out ways to try how we can leverage on some of these narratives and trends to become top of mind. And then the other part is experimentation. So many times we don't know exactly how certain things will work out unless we try. So to your point, before LSD, we have attempted a couple of narratives that didn't work out too well. We attempted to, because late 2022, NFTs was still a pretty big thing. We wanted to see how Pendle could have relevance in the NFT segment. That didn't work out too well. So just to give you a sense of what we were doing, we launched a market on Looks Rare, which is an NFT marketplace.
I remember, I tried that before. I used that.
All right. Yeah. Hopefully it was okay. And then
it's good.
We also did like an auto compounder for ApeCoin. So and our auto compounder was much more effective and meaningful than what was official. So we intended for that to be a public good when someone like. The point is to target the ApeCoin holders, right? Like if they wanted higher APY, they should use a compounder, and the best compounder was Pendles. So they do that, and then they think of Pendle, and that helps us with like top of mind. In the same way, these days we also have a little thing called Pendle Swap on Pendle app. That's also a public good that basically allows, like the reason why we wanted that in place is so that we can market it to the meme coin holders, and all these meme coin holders could effectively sell their meme coins into like fixed rate PT SUSD, for example.
Oh shit, that's pretty cool.
So if you see the Pendle swap, you can actually have multiple token inputs and then to the same same, like you can effectively sell like meme coin A, B, C, and you can allocate everything to, let's say, ETH, for example. So that's a little bit of product offering that we introduce just to cater to a certain group of users. So we've always been very big on that, the experimentation and staying on top of mind.
This is awesome. I feel like the growth in crypto is usually like as a ladder, right? Whenever you catch up like a huge narrative or trend or momentum, like your growth 5x, 10x, even 100x. And it usually goes to this steep period until you find out the next growth phase, right? Unlike the traditional Web2 where there's like a linear or exponential growth. But I also wanted to, so from my perspective, I think the brightest team in crypto, they are really good at catching up trend, stay on top of the market, but they also have a really core belief or vision on exactly what they wanted to build in the end of the day. And then they can somehow combine what's going on in the market, right? The trending stuff into the core product they wanted to build. And that's how they're able to make it in the end. I feel like your team fits exactly into that category. And there's really very few of these teams that I know. But in the end of the day, I do think you guys are sticking to the product you wanted to build this whole time, right? A marketplace where people can trade future yield. So that's brilliant.
Well, thanks. We're trying very hard. Yeah, staying focused. I mean, if anything that I've learned, it's really about staying focused. Because there's so many things that you can do in crypto, and you could fork things here and there, put them together, you get a new product for good and bad. But I think at the end of the day, it's really about staying in your zone of core competency and continue to build upon that. Because if you compound that core competency, eventually I think you get something a lot more meaningful versus trying to stretch yourself too thin and then getting involved in many different aspects that
100%
you might not be entirely interested in. So for us, it's always going to be rates, trading, and with V2, with Boros, that remains to be very consistent.
It's just it serves for like a different group of people or like different market segment.
That's right.
Which is great. So the next question for you is like, if there's really just one or two things that you learned from building in the bear market, what are those? Because I feel like right now we are in like I don't know, we can probably say it is a small bear market, right? And then a lot of founders, they are trying everything to keep the morales high internally. Because obviously I know people, the morales are down, obviously, for all the teams out there, right? Like, and what is your secret of keeping your team like stay together and continue to push hard together? Because obviously you and your co-founders, you are dedicated, right? And then you already shared that your team is like world-class, already aligned, but still they're not the co-founders, right? So still you have to put in a lot of energy and stuff in previous bears, right? What are those? Can you share a little bit more about the experience from that side?
Sure. So I think the most important thing is everything starts from the founders, the management team. So
yes,
we have a lot of conviction in the direction that we're building towards. We believe that fixed rates, rate speculations would be an important part of financial sector. And because we believe in that particular vision, these things permeates down the team. So if as a leader, we don't hold a certain value, people who are working with us will see through it. So there's no secret here. Like we think the vision is very, very ambitious, but we also think that it is very meaningful. So whoever joins us, they would feel the same because of influence from the top. So when it comes to building in a relatively bearish market, I think having that belief is very important because your time horizon shouldn't be just 1 year, 6 months. It has to be a lot longer than that. And then if you zoom out and you take a 5-year timestamp, these market fluctuations are inevitable, and then you can come to terms with it more easily because it's just part and parcel, right? Like the likelihood of you encountering a bear market in 5 years' time is 100%. So,
yes.
so if that is the case, then it is actually very normal, and it's just like we will go ahead, business as usual, but we just have to go through this period, and then when bull market comes, then we'll have to react a little differently. Now, so that's the mental model part, and then I think very practically, everyone joins a team because they want to make a living. So having an alignment of interest, so all the full-time staff within our team gets a stake in Pendle's successes. So bull and bear, everyone is incentivized to contribute to the common movement in making Pendle the best platform for rates trading. So that is, I think, another piece that we enforce. And then very importantly, the other thing that is maybe a little more intangible, but also very essential, is knowing that our team consists of a lot of very high impact individuals. So these are very high IQ people, and they really like challenges. And it's about framing the current situation as a form of challenge to appeal to their innate desire, because some people just like to solve problems more than others, and you just have to appeal to that side of individuals. And if they get through it, there is a very different kind of sense of satisfaction for these individuals. So yeah.
Dude, I like the last part the most, because I 100% feel like, like the brightest mind in every single team, they like challenges. They don't like they're just getting paid every single day, just doing normal work. They like to do solve god tier challenges. And as you said, indeed, the sense of satisfaction is another level.
Yeah, I think so. I believe very firmly that all of us are driven by a purpose. For a lot of these very high impact, high IQ individuals, solving problems is one of those purposes that they live for. So it's just framing that. Yeah.
This is awesome. All right. Another question for Pendle specifically. So lately we've started to see some incidents happens in the community, right? The PT and YT stuff going on, especially on the Bitcoin Fi projects. So can you share a little bit more about first what's been happening, and second, how can platform like Pendle serve more like a regulator in the future, right? To protect the interest of the retail users. Right? Let's say if I aped into YT, they just don't give me the coin based on the points that I'm having. What are some things that you guys can do? And what is the current restraint, or why this is happening right now?
Yeah. So why this is happening right now is because points are largely off-chain. And because it's largely off-chain, the transparency aspect of it is not exactly the clearest, unless the team decides to disclose it. So yes. Because of that, there have been discrepancies between what's displayed and what's distributed by some projects. And as a result of that, specific to, say, Bitcoin, like BTC5 projects,
yes,
a lot of users are getting less than what they were shown. So what we've done on our end is to, on behalf of users, reach out to the relevant projects and ask them to review the points. So I think we've had most of the situations under control. With respect to eBTC, they have reviewed and they've resolved it. And then with respect to Pump, they have also opened up a portal that allows for individuals to submit their case, and then it will be taken and reviewed by the Pump team. So I think eventually everyone will be made whole. Now, to your point about how we can prevent this from happening again, one of the things that we're exploring is to represent a group of users and participate in the points program as a Pendle entity. So what that means is
what
that means is it's actually very different from the current set of implementation. Currently, what we do is we will, on behalf of users, submit the script to the points issuers and have them recognize and read through this script and then do the points allocations to the individual addresses and then do the distribution prorated to their points. So that means a lot of times if the points issuers are maybe not competent to maybe too occupied to do a very thorough check on their script writing, then there could be discrepancies and like what we've seen. So if we were to, and most of the time with this points program, there are probably thousands of individuals, individual addresses that we need to submit for like the points issuers to review. So it's because of the sheer volume, mistakes happen. Now, what we can do moving forward is like we take care of the points and reward distribution, but we only submit one Pendle address to the points.
So you guys get that fund, and you are in charge of share
the users on our side.
Yes.
Yeah. So that should streamline a lot of processes, and it should make communication a lot clearer as well. And if there's a dispute, it's only one entity that the issuer would have to deal with, and that is us. And I think it's so much easier than having to take care of 1,000 different communication lines.
I feel you. Yeah. And another point to your point, right? I do think a lot of the points right now are extremely centralized, which means they're not on chain. If they're not on chain, which means they're not verifiable. It's really easily manipulative. I just think it's a problem of like at this current stage of the market and the entire point system. I think in the future, if we can introduce a point system that is on chain, that is verifiable, I think a lot of these problems is going to be gone. But right now, we just have to face it, and we just have to solve it as our best capabilities.
Yeah, we're dealt with this card. We have to go with it.
Yeah, it's good that you guys are taking care of like the communities. So yeah, great work. What is your next question, please? What is your ultimate vision for Pendle? Let's say in 5 years, probably not 5 years. Let's say 10 years. Like, how do you envision this product to grow? Because right now, if you look at Web3, right, it's pretty big DeFi project. But still, I think the biggest pool around Pendle right now is like, what, 20 million? Or?
A couple of hundred, like 7.
Okay. The biggest pool is the USDE pool, right?
Yeah, USDE.
Yes. But like comparing with traditional TradFi, is still small. Like, how do you envision to grow this? And the ultimate game.
Yeah. So for Pendle, our vision when we started out until now has not changed. We want to make the best product for rates to be traded because we believe it is one of the most important instruments that enable a financial sector to be efficient. And that remains to be the case for us. So I think in 5 years' time, ideally, we can allow more forms of rates to be traded beyond just the ones that we're serving within crypto. So now we made yield tradable, like so yield-bearing assets like AUSDC or STETH. Those are tradable on Pendle. We also made points tradable. So basically any kind of points. But with Boros, we look to expand that offering even more. So the first use case is going to be funding rates because we see a lot of opportunities in the funding rate segment. Considering that funding rates power protocols like Ethena and Resolve and a couple of others, right? And it's a very essential part of perp markets. And perp markets, the daily trading volume is typically in the range of $200 to $300 billion.
It's huge.
It's huge. So we want to target that segment. We want to create an instrument to allow for funding rates to be traded. So that's one segment. And then the next use case would be POS rates. So ETH staking yield, Solana staking yield. Now, those are yield that fluctuates, but they typically fluctuate in a very small band.
Yes, that's what I'm going to ask, because they don't usually fluctuate that much, right? It's only like 0.5% max.
Yeah. So in these instances, having that leverage is very essential because you need to amplify that in order to make it more meaningful for speculators or traders to participate in the market. So Boros will be able to cater to that. And I also think another one is like borrowing rates. Right now, we don't have a very meaningful way for borrowing rates to be fixed. So hopefully with Boros, we can enable that. And of course, like if assuming that we're able to cover all these different segments, I also wish for us to use the tool and the technology that we've developed to cater to rates market outside of crypto. So it could be something a bit more niche. It could be, I don't know, in the grander scheme of things, maybe LIBOR rates, any kind of bank rates. Yeah,
That's exciting.
So I think the road is still very, very long ahead. We're just at the very, very beginning, but we want to be able to use technology to disrupt some of this status quo and assert Pendle, Boros to be the instrument for rates trading. And I think that's an exciting future because with rates, we've seen how rates are so important to an economy, right? When Fed mentions that they're going to cut like 25 bips, 50 bips, and then suddenly everything changes.
Yes.
So every single basis point that we can save, I believe there is going to be an outsized implication at a grander scheme of things. So we want to make things more efficient, starting with rates. And I think that's our calling.
And there's so much potential once you hit into like the Web2 segment.
Yes.
It's going to be a wild west once again.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I feel like I've asked enough questions about Pendle. I wanted to ask you something more on the personal side of things, like your mindset and stuff like that. So, can you give us a little bit more about what were you trying to pursue 10 years ago? Is it to become financially free? Is it just to build a lit world-class product that people uses, millions of people uses? And that is the first question. The second question is, what are you pursuing now, right? Like we can scope out, right? We can zoom out. Regardless of Pendle, what are you trying to pursue with your life 10 years ago and now? Please.
10 years ago, So 10 years ago, I actually started on crypto already. But in terms of what I wanted to pursue, I don't think it has changed all that much, to be honest. So 10 years ago, I was pretty brainwashed looking at the Western media and looking at all these tech founders and seeing how much impact they've made in a very short span of time. I wanted to be that. I remember looking at Zuckerberg, Steve Jobs, and all these great icons. Yeah, great tech icons, and seeing what kind of meanings and impact that they have offered to the rest of the world, including all of us, right? I remember wanting to have maybe not the same skill. I would be extremely satisfied if I can even achieve a fraction of what they have achieved. So effectively, I was really striving for impact at scale. Today, I don't think I've changed all that much. But of course, I'm in a much better position now, especially from a financial standpoint. So I think that's very, very liberating, and it allows me to pursue that particular ambition with higher velocity. But also, there have been, I think, a couple of other encounters as well. The reason why impact at scale resonates with me, aside from just reading all that media stories, was also because I grew up spending quite a bit of my time on voluntary work.
Mm.
In doing voluntary work, I had to contribute my time and with my limited resources to try to help someone. And I always find that there's only so much that a person can do. So, for example, I did a flag day, so trying to like take one of those cans and trying to get people to donate money. At the end of the day, I would be able to raise after 8 hours of standing and going about collecting money. I might be able to collect $100, but realistically, $100 is not that meaningful if we want to. I mean, sure, it can buy a couple of things for people who need it, but it's not that meaningful when it comes to like if we're looking at the big picture.
Yes.
So I felt small and handicapped. So I started to look at things that I can do with my time more seriously, and that's how the impact that skill started to resonate with me more.
I love that. What is your definition for money, and how that has changed in these 10 years? Because I asked this question because a lot of people who I interviewed, I asked them, like, a lot of people before they are financially free, right? The only thing they on their mind, right? They can be building like great businesses and stuff like that, but the goal is to become financially free. And after that, they start to think about impact and skill. But you, on the other hand, that is your core at the starting, which really amazes me. So I really wanted to ask, what is the money for you, even when you first started, right? There's only a couple $100s in your banking account. And right now, like you've made it. Like, what is it like? Just give us more about like that side. I'm just curious.
I don't think I've changed all that much. I appreciate the financial the comfort that finances can afford me right now, but I think I'll also be okay with a lot less. So I don't have big expenditure. For me, back in the days, I survive on maybe $5 a day. So for a good period of time before we found a Pendle, we had no salary. I had to survive on $5 a day for 2 years.
$5 a day?
I had to work multiple jobs. So, yeah, all because I think I was a little too idealistic about. Yeah, so it could be disillusion. I don't know, but yeah, I was okay. All this time, I was very, very okay, comfortable with a small amount of money. So yeah, material goods have never appealed to me. Yeah, so it hasn't changed all that much.
I fucking love that, man. I love that. This is awesome.
Yeah, I guess at the end of the day, I just figured that I wanted to be remembered not for how much money I've made, but how much money I allowed, or how much wealth I allowed other people to make. So yeah, that also guided me to think about what we want to do more differently.
Positive impact for life. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. What are some really, really spicy hot takes that you have for our world right now? It can be about crypto or not, like regardless, but like really spicy ones.
Well, I have one, but I'm not sure if it's really spicy.
Please.
I think that the mindset of decentralizing a protocol and then delegating everything to community governance, that period is probably going to be over. Because I think so for one, I believe that when we started out, there is an ideal state of protocols, and that is to like this was maybe back in 2017, 2018. The ideal state was we build something, it gets a certain traction, and then delegate it to community governance.
The DAO comes up and then, yes.
but we've seen from time and again, I think when you delegate a lot of important decisions to the community, you move slower, and then you become less competitive, and then eventually you become irrelevant. So I'm not sure if that will sustain, because if in a fast moving industry, and I think innovation and leadership, frankly speaking, leadership is probably everything here. If a product wants to perform well, then there's got to be a strong leadership team to guide the direction of the protocol. And for as long as the leadership teams is there, then I think it'll be okay. And then it can weed out all the things about complacency, and instill sense of urgency, and to keep the team moving. So my take is, over time, that not to say DAO is going away. I just think that more and more teams who are very serious about building the future of finance will want to continue to be involved in the
centralized way.
Yeah, centralized or not, I think to me is not that important. More importantly, it's just having someone who can continuously guide the direction of the protocol and align the interests of all the different stakeholders to do something meaningful.
I like that. Yeah, because I read similar series before. Like it's not even like only about decentralization. It's about like if you give control to a group of people, right? They make mediocre decisions rather than someone who knows about the vision and can guide people toward that goal with higher efficiency and higher result.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
so what do you think about decentralization overall in the future? Like, but still, it's going to be a very core aspect of our industry, right? Because it's one of the natural. Yeah.
Sure. I think the technology can be decentralized, but the team does not necessarily have to be decentralized, right? Like, so
Yes.
what I think the best proposition of a decentralized tech is that the operation can scale much more meaningfully at a fraction of the cost. So, like, relatively speaking, right, if we were to delegate our entire backend system onto on-chain, and we run on a very high throughput chain like Solana or Base or Arbitrum, the cost of scaling is actually quite negligible compared to running an entire exchange using AWS or GCP.
Yes.
So that is, I think, the benefit of having like a decentralized tech, but it doesn't mean the team should be completely decentralized. I think the team can continuously to be core and centralized, but using decentralized tech to make a difference.
Beautiful. What do you think about Ethereum? What is the biggest problem right now? And where will Ethereum be in 5 years from your perspective?
Oh, this is a very hard question. I want to say, so I am relatively indifferent about Ethereum's development, because I think it's they just have a change in leadership, and I think that's the first step. I have, like, Pendle is built on Ethereum. We have been a big beneficiary of the Ethereum ecosystem. So I hope that Ethereum can make a successful turnaround, because we are on the same boat. And yeah, we've been a big beneficiary of the ecosystem this entire time. So we have no reason to see them fail. I want to say, based on what I've seen, so Thomas, the new director, has published a couple of pointers, and I think they are scoping out areas to focus on. And I think that's a good start. So instilling that sense of urgency and then trying to navigate people to move in a certain direction, I believe, I'm hopeful. And I always think about, I compare Ethereum's current state to maybe the Apple in the 90s. So if a company like
Okay.
Apple was able to turn around with the right leadership, I think with the right leadership, Ethereum can also do well. Yeah.
But you need
So
someone who is highly opinionated. Highly opinionated.
yes, but just someone who's competent, right? So everything starts from the leadership. With the right leadership thing, a lot of things can happen in a good way. So I hope this set of leadership at Ethereum Foundation I'm sure they're competent and we're ready to support if needed. And it's a big job, so I wish the best for the team.
Beautiful. Thanks for your insight. The next question is the most interesting one for this entire episode. So it's where you get to share your one story, the Tales of Web3 story. So the story can be about anything. It can be about, really fun stuff happening back at like the old days in Pendle. You guys building a product, doing fundraising. It can be also something that you've done that is just silly and fun. The goal for this question or this story is for our audience to remember, right? This is something that Tian did in the past, right? In his mindset that shaped who he is today. So please take time to think about that story, and the stage is yours.
I want to say really one of the most defining moments for Pendle was when we supported an asset called Wonderland Time, Red Memo. So this was in 2021 when V1 was first launched and there was not a lot of traction on V1. So a good day was maybe 20K in daily trading volume. So there was that time. UX was pretty bad for Pendle V1. For those who are interested, there's still an archive UX there, but nothing too meaningful. So, I mean, looking back, it was a pretty, I mean, the underlying tech was okay, but there were a lot of considerations that we didn't think of, and it didn't look like it was going anywhere. And then we saw Olympus DAO 3.3 and the whole clan 3.3, and then on Avalanche there's Daniel Siesta and his team decided to fork Olympus and did Wonderland.
I remember that.
They were printing tens, maybe 7,000-8,000% APY, and everybody loved that. And Daniel is such a great community leader that he was able to cultivate a strong interest in Frog Nation. So they had like Magic Internet Money, they had Wonderland, and maybe a couple of other projects. And everyone calls themselves Frog Nation because of Daniel. So we decided to take the chance and supported Red Memo asset, which was printing thousands of percent in APY. So that was, I think, after we launched the market and we promoted it in the Red Memo AVAX community, we saw the daily trading volume to grow substantially from 20 to 50K to $1 million, $2 million. Eventually, it topped at around $5 million. The reason why I said that's one of the most defining moments of Pendle was because that was the first time I felt that there was some form of product market fit, and I felt that what we built was meaningful. So even though real traction happened much later in 2024, I think we knew we were onto something in 2021. So
dude, that first touch point, my adrenaline can even, it's even running right now. I feel the heat, It's that first touch point. It's good. I like that story.
Yeah. So thank you, Wonderland, for making whatever they were doing. But if anything, the takeaway for me was that that particular experience was very meaningful because it showed us that what we were building has a value, and we needed to figure out ways to find the PMF, but we were onto something.
This is an inspiring and beautiful story. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
All right. So last question for you before I let you go. Please tell our audience, share a little bit more about what's exciting on Pendle and the new products roadmap, and then how can people participate?
This year is going to be an eventful year for Pendle because, like I said, we will continue to grow V2, strengthen our moat, and then we will also be introducing a new product in Boros. So I think a lot of us here are already somewhat familiar with V2, but I want to touch a little bit about Boros, right? Because not much has been written about it yet. So the first use case is going to be funding rates trading. And I think with funding rates being able to be traded at scale, there will be newer use cases that can be enabled, even beyond our imagination. What I think will likely happen is protocols like Ethena, Resolve, they can effectively lock in funding rates at a more desirable level as compared to having to sit through the volatility of funding rates. Because right now, market is actually not too good and funding rate is probably quite low. And as a result of that, protocols that are very dependent on funding rates would have to close position, which means like reduction in overall TVL. And then the payout for users who are holding these like stable coins would also become lower. So hopefully with new instruments like Boros, they can allocate a percentage of their funding rate exposure to Boros and then fix it at a decent amount. And then the blended yield remains more attractive and less vulnerable to funding rate volatility. And then on the other hand, for speculators, they can actually take a view on funding rate. So if they believe that the funding rate will go up in the next 8 hours, they can actually express a view on Pendle. And if they think it's going to go down, they can express that view as well. So there is going to be meaningful wealth generation opportunities on Boros, very differently from what we offer on V2.
That's nice. And as long as you have insights, as long as you can outsmart other guys, you should join. And thanks for sharing that. This is awesome. Yeah. And yeah, here we wrap up the Tales of Web3 Season 3, Episode 18 with Tian from Pendle. Thanks for hopping on, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me.